Things look a little different this morning in that we see some investors taking risk off this morning, don't we, Dani? But what sort of warnings are we starting to hear then as we take into account the strong gains in risk assets from last week?
Well, it is interesting that what we're seeing decline things like Bitcoin today are these corners of the market that there's this concern of these speculative bubbles. And I think the concern, of course, is when you get these large rallies, you can have days like today or worse that you see big losses. Even the FCA releasing a statement warning about crypto investments, that there are a lot of risks that aren't necessarily acknowledged by those who give out these products and those who buy them as well. So we have these things like Bitcoin being one of them, call options. Last week, we saw the biggest day in terms of volume, the fourth and fifth biggest day in just 1 week alone. I should say all the other records came in just the few months prior to that. So you get this big rally to end 2020, and it just continues into 2021. You get tech. That's another corner where there's this fear, of course, and you have a lot of those names which are the day traders' favorites, for example, like Tesla, doing extremely well in there, too. It's also just a strange environment where we're getting a lot of SPACs coming to market. And there was a SPAC that filed on Friday. Its ticker LMAO. I'm not sure what part of the market cycle that is when we get tickers like that. But it is just these corners, I should say, that people are warning about. The market overall, there is some more confidence that given the Fed is keeping rates low, that any of the sort of big dramatic events like we saw last week are being quickly brushed off. There's some hope that in general the market is healthy besides some of these bubbly corners.
You know, I remember when Barry Silbert and the Winklevi were the most famous Bitcoin investors, but we now see, you know, legendary names like Paul Tudor Jones involved in Bitcoin. So it's not just a Robinhood rally anymore, right? I mean, institutional investors are getting into these pockets of the market.
I think that's completely right, Matt. It is really easy, I think, to look at these things and say, OK, it's all retail investors. But it can't be at this point anymore. And we hear, as you say, from different investors who are getting involved. LEUTHOLD Group, for example, one of their strategists said that this looks like a full-blown mania. And he followed that up by saying, hey, we're participating in it, too. There are plenty of people chasing this momentum because if you were to bet against it, it would be painful. For example, a basket of the most shorted stocks rallied 10% last week, so it's hard to bet against these things.